Joe, how big of a blow is it to lose Perry Riley for looks like a month or so, especially given how well he had played the past couple of weeks?
Yeah, it was kind of like, last week with Cully. It's you feel horrible for the player, especially with Perry, just the way he's been playing the last 3 or 4 weeks. He'd really been feeling good and just playing his butt off. So, of course, we mourn individually for the player, but as a unit, as a group, we got to move on. And guys have done a good job with that, not flinching all year long. So. We've had a number of injuries this year from the beginning of the season until now. And next man will step up, and we'll keep moving a million miles an hour forward and not flinch.
If Keenan, sorry, Mike, if Keenan were able to play on Monday, would he go to Mike and then will Compton will slide over to Mo?
No, we haven't talked about that. Keenan's still progressing. I think once we know that Keenan is 100% healthy, that might be up for discussion. But, Keenan did a little bit more today than he did yesterday. But I don't think you can make that determination until you know a guy's 100% healthy, and Keenan isn't 100% healthy. He's practiced. He did more this week than he did last week. As I said, he did more today than he did yesterday. So, but no, we not at this point.
What have you seen from Mason Foster in the last several weeks? What do you expect out of him in the game?
He's a pro. I think that's the thing that I've been most impressed with him for however 5, 6, 7 weeks, however long he's been here. He came in and went right to work. We've kind of taken I've told you guys this before. Every guy, whether it's guys that have been here from the start or guys that we've signed, the first thing I tell them is don't look at yourself as a backup. You're a starter in waiting. And, I think every single guy in our room knows that, you're always one snap away from being a starter. So he's kind of taken that approach, and he's worked his butt off. And, we'll let him go, and he'll do a great job.
Get a guy like Quentin Dunbar, you see him through practice, you see him every day, but you really don't know how he's going to do in a game with extended action until he gets out there and is lined up against Odell Beckham Jr. What did you think of it, and did he surprise you in any way with what he did on Sunday?
Maybe a little bit, but again, I don't. That's not how I'm wired. I don't work like that. I take the approach where you're a professional football player. You're on the 53-man roster. And whether you play 1 snap or you play 40 snaps, you got to go out and do your job. So very proud of him, the way he responded. But, that's what we expect. So he did a great job, and it was great for him. It was great for us. But, that's what he's paid to do, is go out and make plays. And he did a good job.
Coach, I think there's a fairly broad perception that without Romo, the Cowboys' offense isn't much to worry about. But could you speak to their running game and its significance, the handful that presents, particularly with the shuffling at inside linebacker you're doing?
Yeah. Again, I kind of, this is my theme all the time, and I believe this. This is the National Football League. I know number 9's hurt and not playing, but number 16 has played a bunch of games. He's had a pretty darn good career, and he's got a bunch of supporting cast around him. He's got a great offensive line. He's got 88. He's got 82. Number 20 has played a lot of good football in his career. So this is the National Football League. You got to be ready every week. And just like us, we got to be ready no matter who that 11 is that breaks the huddle for us every play. We got to be ready to play.
What's your assessment of how the secondary has held up and performed despite a bunch of guys playing at different positions, and we've had some injuries back there?
Yeah, it's been, again, we really don't dwell on it. We don't make a big deal of it. We have been banged up there, but again, like I said, our approach and our theme and our message every single week is next man up and let's go play. And they've done a great job. Perry Fuel's done a great job. Aubrey Pleasant with that group coaching them and getting them ready. But we take the approach. Let's go. This is our 53-man roster. This is the 22 or 23 guys that we're dressing on game day. you 11 in the huddle are the most important 11 guys on the field, and when the huddle breaks, do your job, do your assignment, and go play. And for the most part, that group has done that. You know, the linebackers have done it, the D-line's done it, because we've had injuries all over the place. But, you know, we don't flinch, we just go play, and they've done an outstanding job.
Joe, you've talked before about Deshaun Goldson's leadership and all that, and I'm just curious if there are some specific examples that you can show throughout the season of his leadership, things that maybe have stood out to you.
Yeah, you know, I wish there was 1 or 2 or 5 or even 10, but there's, you know, 1,000. You know, he's just one of those guys that, you know, we've all been around people that we work with that, you know, when something needs to be said and everyone's kind of saying, well, oh, gosh, should I say something? He's that guy that says it, and it's always the right thing, you know. Whether it's, you know, something encouraging, whether it's something, you know, motivational, you know, whether it's, you know, something that he has to put an arm around a guy or, you know, get in a guy's face. You know, I think he's why he wears that C on his chest. He is a great captain, you know, and does a phenomenal job from the on-the-field football quarterback of the secondary to on the sidelines to on the practice field to in the locker room, you know, in the cafeteria, in the weight room, you know. He does a phenomenal job of, just like I said, always knowing what to say, when to say it, how to say it, and at the right time. And, you know, he's a true captain.
On a completely unrelated note, I'm curious, going against the team that's one of the coaches is your father-in-law. I'm just curious what that's like for you and some of the things that you learned from him over the years as a coach.
Yeah. You know, Rod's an amazing guy. He really is. And, you know, we had great times in Tampa, you know, 6 years working together as assistants, even the 2 years in Detroit. Rod's one of those guys, you know, very similar to what I just said about Deshaun. If you guys have ever been around Rod Marinelli, he's one of those guys that he impacts every single person that he's around. And I don't know if there was ever a day where I didn't get something from him, you know. And as a young coach, I think that was huge, just because, you know, you wake up every day and you're excited to go to work because you know you're going to get better. You're going to get a little tidbit, you know. And that's what Rod is, you know. You know, we talked on Sunday night, and, you know, we're not going to talk until after the game. So that's kind of our that's our deal. We haven't really played against each other that often, you know, since we've not been working together on the same staff. But special man, special coach, and like I said, it's a unique talent to be able to impact every single person you come in contact with, whether it's a player, whether it's a coach, a coworker, and he has that ability. Special.
At the end of the game, your game last Sunday, you had the Giants with a lateral play. Last night in Detroit, they had the Hail Mary. Obviously, you defended; they didn't. But how often, you know, when do you work on that? How much do you work on those defending those plays? And do you look? Are you going to look at what Detroit did and say, "Hey, they made mistakes"?
Yeah, that's kind of that's part of my progression that I kind of go through every single week. Is, you know, looking at unique 2-minute situations, looking at unique trick plays, obviously in the game scenarios. Those are things, you know, I look at, we discuss as a staff. We try to, you know, part of our daily, you know, presentation that we have with our players on a weekly basis is that we try to create that with them towards the end of the week. You know, we do the last 2 plays of our walkthrough on Fridays are some kind of end of the game scenario. Our last 2 plays that we do on our walkthrough on Saturday before they leave the building to go to the hotel is always into the game. But at the end of the day, you know, you practice. It's about execution, you know, and those things. I mean, any defensive coach, I mean, that makes you puke, man. I mean, it's just. I mean, I don't mean that negative against them. I'm talking. I mean, it rips your heart out. It rips your gut out, because we've all been in those situations, and you play your tail off for, you know, 59 minutes and 50 seconds or however long it was, to lose a game in that way with the way they played, because I didn't get to see a lot of it. Last night was like a Wednesday night for us, so but they played their tails off, and to lose a game like that, it's devastating. So, you know, great job of execution by Green Bay, but those are devastating plays. They really are, and it seems like there's one of those at the end of every game every week. Baltimore and Jacksonville a couple weeks ago with the face mask. The same thing. But those are definitely things that are talked about, are discussed. You have a plan. You have a special, situation on your call sheet that you call, but you got to go out and execute the play.
Hey, Joe. Specifically the last 2 weeks, I know he's got a long way to go. Have you seen a little bit of a difference in Preston Smith and in terms of, I guess, his emergence specifically as a pass rusher and in other areas? And then also Jason Hatcher seems to be a guy that doesn't get a lot of sacks per se or a lot of big numbers, but seems to be generating pretty consistent pressure. Yeah,
with Preston, I think we talked in here, I don't know how long ago, but, I made the big point with any young player, it's about consistency, and you can't have the ups and downs. You can't have the roller coaster. You can't have a good practice, then a bad practice, or you can't have a good week, then a bad week. And Preston's starting to kind of string, a few good weeks along. But that's what being a great pro is consistently showing up every single day and being great in meetings, being great in walkthroughs, being great in practice. Because when you get to that point and you figure it out, when you're consistent in every aspect of your life, then it shows up on Sundays. And he's getting there. I've been proud of him the last couple weeks, but I try not to give him a bunch of praise yet until he is consistent week in and week out. But he did well last week, and we expect it again from him this week. And with Hatch, playing defensive line, obviously you want the sexy numbers, you want the TFLs, you want the sacks, but the biggest thing with a defensive lineman is you want impact and you want harassment, whether that's in the run game, whether that's in the passing game. And Hatch on a consistently basis does cause havoc. It might not show up all the time in the stat sheet, which I know is frustrating for him, but as long as he's causing havoc and taking care of things in the middle for us, along with the rest of his crew, it's a good thing. Okay, guys.